in these programs, we're in these facilities to help these kids get better and their lives be better. And that should be our #1 priority. And if we can't help them, we should never harm them. Everything that we use, be it PREA, good training, good supervision, good security, do no harm.
The Prison Rape Elimination Act, which we call PREA, talks about having a zero tolerance for any kind of sexual misconduct in institutions. Any sexual situation occurs in your facility, it should be reported.
The thing with the Prison Rape Elimination Act is it really gives priority to this often hidden crime. This now elevates it to the level of federal action, federal research, federal technical assistance, federal grant programs, and federal accountability.
The paramount piece in all this is making sure that kids are safe.
I think the word prison has turned off a lot of people and has allowed us to use an excuse that it doesn't apply to us.
Sexual assault of kids can happen anywhere, in any size program, whether it be 10 beds or 600 beds.
The Prison Rape Elimination Act applies to all institutions. Group homes, detention facilities, training schools, day treatment facilities, anywhere where you're working with kids. When administrators bury their heads in the sand, then there are legal consequences, and there are also moral consequences.
Juvenile agencies have a legal responsibility to report any sexual assault or sexual misconduct violations.
When a juvenile is assaulted in the system, the entire system is put under the microscope. In some situations, the entire system can be held accountable, from the individual staff member to the director of the department. And if the supervision has not been appropriate, the entire agency is liable.
An administrator who fails to implement PREA faces the possibility of losing funding and also faces the possibility of increased liability for a civil lawsuit.
A zero-tolerance policy means you're not going to sweep any of this under the carpet, and you're going to attend to it with the same level of seriousness you would attend to it if it was a rape in the community.
No sexual activity is appropriate within our programs and facilities.
There is no such thing as consensual sex between young people in juvenile correctional facilities or between staff and young people in juvenile correctional facilities.
Have you got a few minutes?
Yeah.
Any evidence of it needs to be addressed in a straightforward, direct manner, investigated, and people need to be held accountable.
Dr. Allen. Hi. How are you? How are you? Good. Got a girl in my unit. What's going on with her? Lately she's been kind of crazy with the staff. Okay. How long has that been going on? I just noticed it recently.
The question becomes, okay, did you know it? Did you see this coming? Were there red flags? Did you put in all of the procedures and policies and training that you could possibly put in to make sure that those things don't happen?
Well, I'm due to see her in clinic this week, so what I'll make a point of talking to her about it and see if I can find out a little bit more about what's going on. Okay, that'll be fine. Okay, well, thanks so much for letting me know. I appreciate it. All right, thank you. Thanks. Come in. Got an elementary for me? Sure, come on in. Earlier today in school,
No administrator wants to be called by the media or attorneys or anyone else that you didn't do your job.
And the look in his eyes is...
You want to make sure that you can say, we're investigating it, we're looking into it to make sure that kids are safe.
Any staff person, and I mean any staff person, that includes the janitor, that includes the director, that includes a volunteer, anybody within the organization has a responsibility to report, and it's mandated by law.
Yeah, it's not new. We've had laws regarding sexual assault, sexual intimidations on our books for years. We've had policies and procedures for years on those very same issues. But what I think we're being asked to do with the passage of the Prison Rape Elimination Act is take a new look at putting additional accountability in our system. And I don't think we should fear that.
What we need to do is we need to open ourselves up to public scrutiny because we're not ashamed of what we're doing. That's the way we should have a clean and healthy juvenile justice system.
Systems that operate under a code of silence are doomed to fail.
When you're working in an institution like this, you're depending on people to take your back. And I think people find it difficult sometimes to snitch out someone who's been supportive of them in the past. But that's why it's so important for the Prison Rape Elimination Act to have elevated this to say, no, this is not acceptable and you must report inappropriate behavior.
One of the things that we have really discussed in institutions is the issue of false allegations. And it does occur. The issue is, do we report it? Do we investigate it? Do we look at every opportunity that we've had to show that these things didn't occur?
It's better to report and apologize than to ignore and pay or have that child paid.
But there are many good reasons for that higher rate. The incidence of sexual violence in juvenile facilities may reflect more aggressive reporting of incidents, more thorough investigation, and a much broader definition of what constitutes sexual violence. And so we have a very specific need to understand the nature of it, where it happens, when it occurs, who's most at risk. We have many unanswered questions.
The PREA Commission is designed to investigate the incidence of sexual assault in incarcerated or detained situations and to produce a report that will be submitted to Congress and to the President and to make recommendations regarding, by way of standards, as to what can be done to curb the incidence of sexual assault.
We'll be selecting about 180 juvenile facilities across the country, but we will be in one facility in every state. The actual survey will be conducted in a private room in which the youth that's been randomly selected will come into the room and be placed before a computer screen.
I think you do what you measure in juvenile corrections. And so if you measure the incidence of sexual assaults and sexual pressuring, you will have a baseline that allows you then to say, we're focusing on this problem, we're training staff, we're developing policies, we're putting mental health services into place, and you'll be able to see what happens over time so that as you improve, you'll know what works and what doesn't work.
In so many ways, they tell you just by their actions, and the housing units will tell you a whole lot about what's going on in there.
Administrators must understand that they're not alone in this.
NIC will be providing technical assistance and training for juvenile justice practitioners in areas such as staff sexual misconduct, such as implementation of programs, and developing policies and procedures within the juvenile justice arena to help them incorporate the policies and the intent of this legislation in their organizations.
We need to hear from the advocate groups. Sometimes juveniles are more willing to talk to advocacy groups than they may be to staff.
What's going on? Nothing.
And we need information. We need information that may come our way that may actually prevent a sexual assault, or if not prevent, it may give us critical information to thoroughly investigate those assaults. So I value advocacy groups.
The more redundancy you have in your institutions, the more likelihood that the administrator will find out what's going on. And that's through grievance procedures, that's through your medical department, that's through your mental health department. When you do those kinds of things, then there's a lot of folks who are looking at children. And while they're doing that, someone eventually will report it. Here are some things that we can do to reduce or prevent sexual assaults. You have to look at the design of the facility and make sure that wherever you have your staff posted, that they have a visual of the entire area.
You need to cut out blind spots where groups of kids can pull other youth into compromising positions. You need to cut down the number of unnecessary locations that staff can seclude themselves with young people. And really need to set your whole facility up so that staff can have eyeball supervision with kids at all times.
There's no different than you supervising kids in your own home. If you don't know where they are, then things are bound to